Right, we're live. Welcome to Lockdown Live. Thanks again for joining, everybody. How are you doing, Kassian?
Hey, I'm doing. Thank you.
I've got a little lag on my YouTube, so let me just make sure I don't listen to that while we're live. Yeah, perfect. So boys, I've seen your little setups. You're obviously at home. You're not in the studio like you normally are. Whereabouts have you been spending lockdown?
I'm spending it in Kent, Broadstairs, at my mum's, which has been nice because I don't usually come here very often. It's quite different to my home setup because I don't really have any speakers or gear here. But I've been getting on quite nicely with my headphones and laptop.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. Can you show us around a little bit? Can you? Where are you now?
So that's actually one of my mum's paintings.
Oh, nice.
She's just got into like abstract art. And then there's loads of cringe baby photos on the wall.
I kind of want to see some of those.
Can you go close to one, Lauren?
Pardon?
Can you go up close just to one of them so we can see?
Oh, for God's sake. Right.
There's no way you could have mentioned that and not made us give you.
That's me when I was cute. Yeah, it's just generally quite quiet and like quite peaceful around here. So it's been nice to make music in a new environment, which I find always helps.
Yeah, really nice. And are you finding it quite easy to be creative up there?
Yeah, it's probably the most productive I've been in a long time actually, which has been quite refreshing.
Nice. Yeah. And Joe, where are you? Are you still in Hackney?
I am at home. Yeah, I'm in my flat in Hackney. I managed to like just as the lockdown happened, I just like jumped on my bike, went to the studio, and just grabbed as much stuff as I could possibly carry back. So I don't have any speakers, but I've got like push machine and like two little synths that could fit.
So you didn't bring a tiny piano?
I didn't bring a tiny piano. No, I should have.
To try and find a picture of that, we've got I don't know what it is. It's a Yamaha, right?
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I share a studio with Warren and Joe, and they have a tiny piano in there that nobody really uses. Whose is it?
Cliff, our other partner, uses it. I think it's Roland. You know, it's quite a good brand. It actually sounds all right. It's like a full upright white piano, but it's about this big.
Yeah, so what pieces did you grab? I was going to say, like, what were your top three? Shit, I need those, you know.
So I got my push. I got the machine, which is definitely. I've got two machines. I've got one at home anyway, because it's like my favorite thing. And I got, you can see it. I got a System 1 as well, which I probably use more than anything else. So I figured that should be the one. And then we just got this little Juno boutique Juno JU6 thing.
Nice. I feel like that would be perfect for your productions as well.
Yeah.
We got it just before the lockdown, so actually I've used it way more than Warren now because I bought it home. But
how do you feel about not using the equipment, Warren, and you just got your laptop?
I'm kind of used to it, and it's given me a chance to explore like my VST library and go through a lot of other stuff which I wouldn't usually. But I am missing the studio. We got in like a really good swing of like producing together before this all happened. So he's got all the goodies and I don't.
No, it's hard, isn't it? I mean, how are you, like, what's your creative flow like now? What are you finding works well for you two?
Do you want to go?
Yeah, go on. We actually we kind of worked a little bit like semi-remotely anyway. So we just use Dropbox and have all of our projects in there, and then we can both. Like, usually we create new stuff together in the studio, and then like separately we can both just dip into it and work on it. So obviously we've just been doing everything completely remotely in Dropbox. It's a bit weird. It's like one of us will make an idea, save it, and then we'll come back to it a few days later, and the other person will have changed it loads and usually made it way better. And then we just go back and forth. So it's just like we're kind of passing this thing back, which is, it's kind of nice. Like, it's a totally different way to how we normally work.
Well, that's a beautiful partnership if you say that the other person normally makes it better. So
most of the time.
Do you find it quite easy to be like, guy, I'm not really sure about that bit, or like be quite straight up about stuff?
Yeah, I think we are. We're very good at that actually. I think it's so because we know we've got a good picture of what we are now in terms of what our sound is and like what each other brings. So we kind of trust each other just to be like, all right, you go and do that, and then I go and do that, and kind of end up in the same final picture.
It's definitely easier now not that it was hard at the start, but now it's like, you know, when we started, Kassian didn't exist as a thing, so it's just our two tastes kind of playing into each other. Whereas now, it's its own entity, like it's got an identity, and we know the kind of sound that works. And now it's a bit easier just to kind of think about, does it sound like Kassian or not?
Yeah, and you can just jam. And
yeah, exactly. And actually, the constraints are kind of nice because we know that like we exist here, and we can just push it a little bit in another direction, but we know what's also too far out.
Yeah, definitely. Do you feel like you've kind of assumed different roles? Like one of you's more of a sample digger, one of you's more of a mixed out, like what kind of bits do you feel like you assume, or are you kind of 50-50?
I'd say primarily, yeah, but we're kind of pushing back and trying different things. I'd usually be more kind of like sample based, and Joe would be more live. But we cross over quite a lot these days, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty even now, especially now that we're remote. It's really leveled
Yeah.
it out, because normally if we're in a room together, like we can bring the separate things, whereas if we're both making sketches individually, it's kind of nice because it means that we're both making them from separate places and then doing our take on that. So
Nice.
Yeah, definitely changed a little bit. And we've actually been surprisingly productive in the lockdown, way more than I thought we would.
Yeah.
Great. Why do you think that is?
There's nothing else to do, is there?
We got in a good routine of going to studio at least once or twice a week, so the itch is still there, and the weather's been good, so I've been in a good mood. So for example, I live quite close to the beach, so one day I took about 4 or 5 unfinished projects and just finished them like literally on the beach.
Oh.
And I've never really done that because I live in Wood Green, which is obviously metropolitan, built up chaos area. So I never really get a chance to do that. So just the change of environment has kind of made me more productive.
Do you feel like the change of environment might have had an influence on the sounds you're kind of putting into the tunes at all?
Yeah, I think we're kind of pushing more in a direction which we wouldn't usually before. And because we both kind of understand that direction, we're going a bit more confident with it. Whereas before we'd be like, oh, should we? Or
yeah,
like, yeah, let's just do it. That makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And like on a more personal level, how are you individually finding yourselves, you know, to get into that creative space? How do you do it? Are you finding it very easy, or have you got a little routine?
I wouldn't say it's as easy as when you're in it.
Yeah.
Because we're still working full time. So 9 to 5 is, I mean, our jobs are quite intense, and 9 to 5 is still quite intense in terms of like finding a few hours a day which we can really communicate and finding that time in the evening. But when you get there, I think it's all right. I think it's the same for you, Joe.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I've actually kind of it's important to try and like take breaks, I think. And we had this really big productive session for the first few weeks of the lockdown where we made like 10, 12 tracks or something. And then we just took a break. And I think it's really important to kind of just do that and just take a couple of weeks off where you just don't like, I would normally bother myself to think, oh, I should be producing more, I should be doing more. But actually, I think it's important to just turn it off for a little bit. And then recently, in the last like week or two, I've just come back to it feeling a bit more kind of refreshed and a bit more ready. So we kind of do that in the real world as well when we're not locked down. Like, when we finish an EP or something like that, we'll just not go to the studio for a couple of weeks and just let ourselves reset and come back with a fresh palette. So I'm trying to make sure I still do that at home, you know. So
yeah,
I prefer to say like I'll hammer it every single night and produce every night for a couple of weeks, be really productive, and then just have a complete mental break from it and just leave it for a bit and then come back to it. But it's obviously harder to do that at home because I just exist like in 2 rooms. I work here well, like I'm here 9 to 5, and then I try and produce in the same space.
When you're producing in the same space you work, it's really hard to like, it's the same chair. So it's really hard to like, you go and make lunch and you're sitting in the work chair. It's like right now, I've got to switch my brain, which is quite difficult.
Yeah. So
I definitely think that actually quite a lot of people I've spoken to are saying that taking a break is really important, and it's the stepping away, because it's so easy to be like, let's make more, let's do more, let's keep doing it. And you know, it's really important to even look back at what you've achieved and just take that break for your brain. So well done that you're doing it. It's obviously working.
just so much in the news, and like social media is just like everyone's posting every 5 seconds. It's quite overwhelming. So I think just like having a break from just like kind of tapping into everything all the time is good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, are you checking the news much about stuff?
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. No. Like I'll have a day where I'm just like nothing.
Yeah,
it's
I think
really
it's so important to step back.
It's hard to do actually. It's so tempting always to kind of look into it, especially when you're just kind of at home and you can't go out and think. But yeah, I've kind of just been like every time I've sat down to produce, I've treated it like a studio session. So
yeah,
I
you're amazing at that though. You
Well,
have got this crazy studio work ethic. I mean, it's amazing.
I mean, I would like rather than trying to tuck in half an hour before I have dinner or something, I would be like, right, I'm going to spend all day on Saturday producing, and then I did this last weekend, and I'll get up and I'll go for a walk outside, I'll prepare for it as if I'm going to the studio, and then you can sit down and be like, right, I'm turning my phone off. This is all I'm going to do all day now, and just
and
really,
that's what you need, like you said, Warren, isn't it? Where you can then
push everything out of the way, like turn off all my messages and stuff like that, and just pretend I'm in the studio basically.
And mix wise, obviously you just did your Phonica mix. How are you getting around sort of doing mixes together when you're in isolation?
Why do you like that?
Yeah. So obviously we did the Bellamy show, and we've done the recent Phonica mix, but we started a new series on Bellamy called House from Home, where I kind of do half of the mix on Ableton and Joe does it live at home, and we're kind of like blending our style of mixing live by trying to do it like piecing it together but making it flow. I think like the two sides of our mixes kind of like jam really well now, so I think it sounds like one continuous mix, but it's been interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we very much had to like, normally when we record a mix, like a proper one, like the Phonica one, we would just sit together for a whole evening and like get a big pool of tracks and then shortlist them and then just like try loads of different combinations and just kind of piece it together like that. But obviously we have to do that remotely, so it took about.
How long did it take us to plan the Phonica mix again?
Sorry?
How many hours of planning did it take for the Phonica mix?
It was about 2 weeks. Chatting about it every evening.
It was quite funny at some stage.
Yeah, we really planned it right down to like the nth degree. Most of it, so I recorded most of it live here, and then put the project back into Ableton, and then we again like got it into Dropbox, and we both just tidied it and neatened it up a little bit, and then mastered it and stuff like that. Yeah, it's definitely not like what we would prefer. It's obviously nicer to do it together.
Yeah, and have the energy of each other as well, and feed off each other. And but sorry, Warren.
Well, it was interesting. It came out with a different result because normally it was quite spontaneous, as in we do it that one evening. So we bring all the tracks and it would be done by the end of the night. Whereas this was like we had a lot of time to analyze the different transitions and just make sure we're like super happy with all of it. So it's, I don't know if it was necessarily worse or better. It's just different.
It's different. It's interesting. Yeah. I do like, so when we get together, I'll bring like a bunch of tracks and Joe has them, and then we're just going through each other's tracks, just getting really excited because we'd never heard them before. It's like, oh my god, this is incredible! Like we like going off in tangents, and then what key is this in, and then like go mad.
And that's such a nice thing as a duo, because when you're alone, you don't ever have that, you know.
Yeah, doing mixes by yourself, I think, is quite daunting. If it's more than an hour and a half, I feel like it kind of tails off.
Yeah,
you don't really have that kind of like what am I trying to say with the mix. I think it's definitely harder to do solo.
We have that when we play together in clubs anyway. I mean, like personally, I'm not a huge fan of DJing on my own for like a long period of time. I much prefer playing with someone else.
Yeah, your energy changes when you're doing a back-to-back, I think, because we've done a few, and it's like you just feed off people's energy, and it's so nice.
Yeah, and you can make each other excited about tracks and discover new stuff while you're doing it. It just keeps the energy up, I think. And like when we play together in clubs, we're always pushing each other a little bit. We always know what direction we're going in loosely, or we might communicate a little bit about the kind of the route that we're going to take it on next, but we never plan ourselves really.
It's funny you should say that, because there is times when it's like, oh, should I play this? And then you always say, absolutely, yeah. Even though like, you've probably not even heard it, but it's just me checking myself, like, should I be playing this or should I go for something safe?
The answer is
when you've got someone like, no, just do what you want. It's great.
Yeah, the answer's almost never no when it's like, should we play
Yeah.
this?
It's like, yeah, of course.
But you just
That's
need
why you
the
work together.
yes, you just need the validation sometimes. We have that when we make tracks. Like you know, when you're on your own and you're producing, and sometimes you just listen to this thing and you think, does this even sound good anymore?
Mm.
We just don't have that problem because there's two of us. So it's very quick to get like a response to like, how about we try this? And if the other person says like, yeah, great, move on. Whereas,
We can tell from each other's faces, like he'll play something and I'll be like, or I'll do something, you're like,
You're like, no poker face here, no.
You don't even have to say anything. It's just like, you know, when it's right, I think, and we'll just keep going. That person will just keep going until the other person's like, that's it.
Yeah.
And the phonica mix was kind of a little bit different than your usual style. A little bit heavier, deeper. What kind of made you want to go in that direction?
You
just felt like it.
I think we've all, to be honest, we've always known that we wanted to go a little bit heavier with the Kassian sound. We just wanted to do it at the right time.
Yeah.
So we kind of started with the more kind of jazz influenced stuff on highs, and obviously there's like the disco stuff as well. And we still love all that kind of music, but we always knew eventually we wanted to kind of ramp up to something a bit more like a big room sound, a bit heavier, a bit more techno, not like all the way, still with the same sense of grooves that we've got, but yeah, it just seemed like the right opportunity to try it because it's phonica and they kind of are associated with that kind of sound as well. We just thought, right, well, this is a good excuse to try and to just give it a go and push it a little bit further than we normally would. We started playing a little bit like that when we've been playing out in a few recent events. We have pushed it just a little bit heavier at the end. So we thought we'd just do a mix that kind of encapsulates like the second half of a set we play in the club.
It's quite funny because even when we're making like disco or house, in between a track we'll go for a break and like, have you heard this? And it'll just be like this massive techno huge thing, and then we'll go back to making this really chill disco track.
Yeah.
Just bring in some of those influences in, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And it's still in the same sort of like, a few genres that go together and mesh together in a set as well. So
yeah, I mean, I think it still sounds like us.
Yeah,
I like this. We're doing this with our production as well. Like, we don't want to just get too pigeonholed or anything. So, some of our productions are coming a bit heavier as well. I'm not saying we're just going to always do that, but I think if you kind of set the tone as being quite diverse straight away, then it's a bit easier. Whereas if you kind of pigeonhole yourself into one sound, it can often be a bit harder to try and shift length.
Yeah, totally. Right, we've got a question on the live chat, by the way. Hey, curious if you guys experience performance anxiety before a gig, and if you do, how do you deal with it? This person struggles with it at times.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
When was the last time, Warren? Do you remember the New Year's Eve gig?
There's loads. Every show we do, there's always a story before the gig or like something in the lead up. Well, what happened on New Year's?
New Year's we played this. We played on the roof of a hotel in Shoreditch as like a warm up.
Yeah.
That was like a very bougie kind of bar thing, playing some disco and stuff. And then we took a cab to Peckham and we played Copeland Gallery was the venue. It was a sold out New Year's Eve party and we were basically headlining it. And that's the first time that's happened. So it was our first big headline show, first New Year's Eve show, like proper New Year's Eve show together. It was completely sold out. It was like 500 people or something. Big, sweaty, like steamed up warehouse. And we arrived at 10 to midnight or something like that. And it was just big. Like we got there and it was really, really big. And we just kind of stood in the backstage bit and just like had to just kind of talk each other down and be like, it's pretty fucking insane. So what are we going to start with?
Don't worry, it's going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah, I mean, the Giles Peterson one, that was probably the most daunting one.
That was a fab changeover. That looked amazing.
Oh yeah, when he introed us.
Oh, this is a good story actually. So what it was the last set of what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
It's the last set of Worldwide Festival, and it was Giles Peterson closing it. So he's playing for the whole festival, the last stage. Everyone from the festival was there, and we were down to play after him, but we thought it was like a mistake in the programming. We were the only artist with 2 sets for some reason, so we thought maybe it'd be like a big back-to-back with like Sinbad and Dan Shake and everybody, and us, and it's just like a party. So we were stood behind the stage, and then Giles Peterson plays High Flamingo by Joy Orbison as his final track. Obviously, everyone loses their minds.
Amazing.
Warren's on the toilet at this point. I'm stood in the booth with 12 people. And then Giles gets the
I think that's my performance anxiety without going into too much detail. There's always one.
100%.
Yeah, that's true. And so Giles is on the mic and he starts introducing us, saying, "Okay, we've got these new, Kassian and new members of the worldwide family that are going to do a great set, whatever." And so I start bricking it, and I text Warren and be like, "Mate, we're on in a few minutes."
He's already anxious on the toilet. What are you doing?
He's in the bathroom, yeah. And so, and then while Giles is introducing us, Dan Shake, who we had just met that weekend, tapped me and he's like, "Mate, if I was you, I would be nervous." I was like, "No."
Oh, thanks, Dan.
That's good to hear from someone like you. That's great. And then Warren comes like running through the crowd, and that first track, I can't remember what we opened with. I think it was our own remix.
One of ours.
Yeah, it was one of yours.
Yeah, the first remix. And that first opening track, personally, I was like shaking. We had Giles Peterson stood behind us.
Who played the first track? You or Warren?
You did. You asked me, and I was like, "Just do it. Just start with that." It's nice, like to reset the room. We've got this idea of like resetting the room a bit without going on too much, so people realize, "Oh, okay, it's a new sound, it's a new direction." And the track that we just put out, I think, did that really well because it starts off with like crowd noises and quite jazzy, and then goes into a big club track.
It's a nice.
We like transitioned into that club bit. It was like, right, we're here now.
Yeah,
we say that to each other, right? We're here now, so we've arrived, and it's like
we have arrived.
It's always the case of like, and I think you get to play on your own as well. Like the first track and the first mix is like really scary.
Yeah.
As soon as you get past that first mix, like everything's fine. And it's definitely. Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, I definitely think resetting the room is insanely important because it's really easy to feel really anxious when you're going after a DJ and they're playing like insanely heavy stuff. And you're like, it's kind of different to what I play. But, you're on the program, people are there to see you. You want to get across your own sound. So it is quite important to reset the room and, then get to play what you feel comfortable playing. So.
Yeah, often when we play out, really, we never plan our sets, but we will talk at length about what the first track's going to be. On the way there, in the cab, whatever. Like we're just.
I tend to. So Joe will suggest loads of stuff, and I'll always say yeah. Like, yep.
Because I'm nervous. I'm like, what on this? Let me do this.
Yeah.
He's more the planner. That's without doubt. He's more the planner, and I'm the just whatever person.
Just wing it.
Yeah. So I think that balances it out quite nicely.
I think to answer the question about performance anxiety, I think the best way around it, for me at least, as I said, I prefer DJing with someone else. So the easiest thing to get around it for me when Warren is there is just to tell him and be like, "Hey, this is quite scary." Like if it's a huge gig or something, we'll be like, "This is pretty intense," and we'll just talk about it. It's quite intense. And even just knowing that you're in it with someone else makes it a lot easier because you're like, "Well, it's not just me. I've got this person with me," or just chatting to like the promoter or the other DJs there and just getting a feel for the room, and you feel like you're not alone if you speak to, if you're chatting to the DJ you're playing before or after. It just sharing the load with the other people in the room. Like, you never really, like the promoters are always crapping themselves the whole time because it's their party and they want to make sure it goes well. So you can always talk to them like, they're going to share your fear as well. It's just as important for them to go as well.
Another thing without sounding too preachy is, I don't know, just practicing more really helped because for me, when I first started, I was finding it quite hard to beat match. And then the fear would be, right, we've got to this point where you can't beat match and then it all goes wrong.
Yeah.
So once you get around the worst thing that could possibly happen, which is it goes wrong, it clangs, how do you get back from that? Once you know how to get back from that, everything else is you're just playing records. So nothing can really go wrong. Everything's in your control. You kind of like.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Warren and me have both been DJing for like 10 years or something, like a long time. And I remember when I started out when I was in university, I had residencies where I'd play like 5-6 hours a night, and when I started doing that, I could barely mix at all. And playing mixes is like every 20 minutes. And it's just in a little bar, like it was a little venue. But I think going wrong that many times in front of a room and then realizing that actually if you cock up a mix, even if anyone does notice, it's forgotten 10 seconds later. Like no one really cares. I mean, if you just did it every single time, obviously it was a bit of a problem, but like, you know, it happens every now and again, and it still happens to us occasionally. And I think just understanding that it can happen and just moving on, like once it's getting out of it as quick as you can. So if you go in with that confidence, now that we've been doing it for such a long time, it doesn't really happen anymore.
And being okay with it is so important. You're so right. I feel like my DJing really changed when I was like, you know, it's okay. It's just
really not the end of the world. Yeah,
records. Like that's all it is. You're just playing records.
Unless the music completely stops.
Yeah. That's happened to me before. Cracked CD and just threw it in the dance floor and putting up on it.
But yeah.
First time I met Sinbad, he was playing after me in Hackney Wick somewhere, and he came up to me to say hello, and I'd never met him before. And the first thing he did was just pull out the wrong stick, just silence the club. And I was like, oh, thanks.
All right then.
Watching, because yeah.
So I've got another question from the chat. Really funny username, as in that's the name. Any tips for trying to get releases for your first few respective releases and as Kassian? Were you very selective with contacting labels? And sorry, I'm just logging into my phone. And what did you find the best way of getting a response was?
So, what do you want to go, Warren?
Yeah, so human face to face was for me. Like I was filming a colours show, like the live R&B thing in Berlin for like one of my solo projects, and Detroit Swindle were playing nearby. I think I bumped into Lars in the toilet and I was like, look, I've got this exciting project. Can I take your email? I'm a real big fan and I'm going to send you some stuff as soon as I get back. And I think that made a big difference for me to like build a connection. And obviously when I'd worked with Joe on his first release, some of the first feedback you got was from Heist, wasn't it? Yeah. From Detroit Swindle.
That was...
So we kind of made this like little invisible triangle of like, you have to kind of respond to us. It's like 3-pronged attack.
Yeah.
If I could call it like that, if that makes sense. You can probably explain it.
I can definitely second that. Like it's my first few releases, the really, really early ones, I definitely was not very selective. I was just like, I want to release on whatever I can.
Yeah.
But I was lucky. I moved to London and I went to a record fair and I met the guys who run What, and they have released like Glen Astro and some other people that I really liked. And the way I got that first release was a remix. I bought their 7-inch Proper 96 record, jazz record, and I just ripped it and remixed it and just sent it back to them. Literally, like within like a few days. And I figured that because I just literally met them at a record fair, you know, they'd remember who I was. So basically, face-to-face connection again. Like if it was a stranger emailing them, they might not open it, but I'd met them. I sat with them for like 20 minutes, listening to some of their records, basically friends with them. Still very good friends with them now. And
Simon, isn't it really, for Phonica?
Yeah, I met Simon at Mr. Saturday Night Party in Bethnal Green. Introduced to him by Adriana, a friend of ours who works there. It's always if you can get a face-to-face connection, it's unbelievably helpful. Like you can just to actually make friends with someone, shake hands with them. Especially if you're turning up to their gig, just to show you some support and actually be active in the industry and show that you're there and you care and stuff like that. If you're just cold call emailing people, a lot of these guys get a million emails every day and they just can't be bothered to open them, understandably, because they have so many. I think we really lucked out with Heist. I think once we got to Kassian, we could afford to be a little bit more picky because we both got our own solo stuff behind us. So we individually we carried at least a tiny bit of weight in the people who've heard of us. And yeah, the Heist one came about because Arun, who runs Whatnot, on the interludes release, I got some feedback from Martin and Lars about one of the tracks, and Arun was excited, so he screenshotted the email and sent it to me and said, "Hey, look, Detroit Swindle like the track." And in the screenshot, I could see their email addresses, and I was like, "Right, I'm going to email them right now." And we just sent them a bunch of the early Kassian tracks, and then they got back to us and then we signed Premise and the other ones.
Remember when we got the news back? It was like, oh, you actually worked.
I remember. I was in the studio with Joe.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. I was like, oh my god, this is so exciting. And what about obviously the three-pronged attack, and it's a lot of face-to-face, but what about if there's a label you really love but you're not able to find a way to, you know, meet them in real life? Have you found that it's been a lot harder when you haven't met people, and have you had any, you know, negative experiences, but, you know, people not replying to some of your stuff?
It's definitely a little bit harder, and I mean, I think for me it's like you want to go prepared with the goods. So if you email a label with like one track, they might love it, but they'll just kind of say that, well, it's only one track, like what am I going to do with that? Really, I would go to a label with at least 6, if not more, maybe 10. I told you this, Christy, ages ago. Remember?
You told me that it was the best piece of advice you ever gave me. I basically was like, I'm not releasing anything, and I'm getting 12 tracks ready. And honestly, thank you for that advice, Joe. Yeah.
Well, me and Juan did exactly the same thing. We waited, and I think we were sat on like 20 tracks before we sent any out. And we still do this a lot now. We're sat on, I don't even know, maybe 40, 50 tracks maybe.
I'm not surprised, you guys. When I go into Ableton and I look at how many things you've made the night before, I'm like, Jesus.
and some of them are just really loose demos. They don't need to be super polished.
No.
The way we think about it is we've got these different avenues that we're exploring, like so different bits of diversity. So we've got some heavier techno stuff, we've got more disco stuff, some kind of jazzy stuff, some left field stuff, like all sorts. And when we approach a label that we don't know, or even a label we do know, we'll give them like 4 or 5 that we think suit the label, which will be our preference. And we'll be like, hey, here's like 4 or 5 that we think would suit the label, but if you like any one in particular, we've got loads. And then if they like one more than the other ones, we can go, okay, you like that one, we've got 4 more like that one. And we send loads. And it just means you speed up the conversation, because if you have that and you've only got 4 tracks and they say, oh, I really like one, then you have to say, all right, give me 3 months and I'll make a bunch more and I'll come back to you. And then the conversation.
Yeah, by the time it's kind of fizzled.
So it's good. It's definitely good to go prepared. I think also for going to labels that you don't know, remember that they will get sent demos constantly and people asking for stuff all the time. I think it's good to just try and introduce yourself and say, we just say that, hey, we're a fan of the label. Would it be okay if at some point we send you some demos? And they'll probably, unless they're absolutely not signing anything forever, they'll probably say, yeah, they'll probably give you their email address, and then you can prepare and wait till you're ready. But if you just go in and do like 1 or 2 tracks, they probably won't even bother to reply, because there's nothing they can do with that. I mean, the label's a business at the end of the day. Unless it's a good product they can shift, they're like, well, I can't do anything with like 1 or 2 tracks.
I think that's honestly really solid advice for anybody listening, because you gave me that quite early on, and you get really excited when you're making music. You're like, I just want to get stuff out there, but it's really good to 1, work on your sound, 2, have a bank of stuff, and 3, you know, like when you give things to labels, you have, you know, a lot of other stuff they can listen to if they want to check you out, and you're more likely to get something signed then, aren't you?
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, that definitely happened with Heist. That definitely happened with both Monica EPs. We've got another EP that's coming out later in the year. Again, exactly the same thing happened with that. We sent a couple, and then they came back, and then we sent a bunch more.
And then they can pick their favourites.
Exactly. We've even had it before. We send a couple, and then they ask for more, and then we send more, and then they just pick some of the original ones we sent anyway. But as a label boss, they just want to make sure they've got the pick. It's like a nice trick. Actually, if you say to someone like, here, pick out of these 4, but I've got more, they'll obviously say, yeah, I want to hear more. And then you give them the other ones, and actually, I want these ones. And then they felt like they've chosen their ones that they actually want.
Humans, we just want more all the time, don't we?
Yeah.
In a way, I wonder if you do this too, not like a manifestation thing, but more you have an idea of a label that you really, really like. And so when you go into the studio, subconsciously, you're kind of making stuff you think they're going to like anyway. Or do you just make stuff that you love and hope it works on the label, you know, hope they like it? Which kind of way do you approach it, or a bit of both?
I'd say it's definitely an influence there if you're looking to go after a label. I think it's definitely important to find the balance though, of like, 'cause I can sometimes overthink. I think Joe's really good at approaching labels. Was I not? Because I get a bit precious about the project, or this is what we should be saying with this project. And I think they need to find like complete balance in, like, I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
Well,
Hey, you're working full time and making loads of great music. I'm not surprised.
no, well, I know what you mean, Warren. It's like there's a balance between, like, let's say if you really love Clone or something like that, it's a label we love, and one day it would be amazing to get signed to that label, but that doesn't mean you should sit down and try and make stuff that sounds like Clone, because I think that they, if you make stuff that is trying so hard to sound like the label you're trying to send it to, probably not going to sound that original, because it's like you can fall into trap of making like cookie cutter music that's just trying to sound like something else. I think really naturally, if you're listening to stuff on these labels, you will naturally be influenced by them, and you'll naturally make stuff that one day might eventually fit. Like for us now, even with the heist releases, we've got another heist release coming up. We know, we're confident. Like we don't make stuff for heist. We make stuff and then we look back at our nice big catalogue of stuff we made and pick out the ones we actually those ones for heist actually. And then we share them with them, and then they might give us feedback and change them a bit. I think you just got to make stuff you like. Really, you'll naturally make stuff that someone, if it's good, like someone will want it. Whereas if you just try and make it for someone else, I think it's risky territory. And I definitely fell into that. I was trying to make stuff that sounded like a specific person or like a specific label or something like that. And it's definitely good when you're learning, when you're starting out, to try and emulate other people. So you emulate the artists you like, because you're never going to make something that sounds just like them. But especially with labels, I think it's risky to have the label in mind. You might have like 10 labels, in which case fair enough. Like what me and Warren do is, we build up our bank of tracks, and then we shortlist all the labels we like. Sit there and we just go through and we take all of our tracks and we go, right, these 5 could go to that label, these 5 could go on. And then we literally just find a way to connect with them. So whether that's worst case is like a cold call email, normally we'll ask around. We know someone who knows them, or we'll go to a gig and meet them, or whatever it might be, just a way to get in touch with the person. I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm just kind of thinking.
No, cool. No, I think you've massively answered that question. Just a thank you from Nick Taylor, who asked the for performance anxiety question. He says, "Sweet, thank you, solid advice."
Thanks, Nick.
I was going to ask how you think you two, as artists, have sort of been adapting to the certain situation in lockdown. How things have changed for you. Sorry, I went suddenly in real deep.
Well, going back to when I was talking about finishing tracks, one of my biggest drawbacks when I approached Joe was he felt so comfortable arranging, and I know you know this quite well, Chrissy, that he's very confident in arranging, and I've kind of like, because I don't have the tools to necessarily create from scratch here, it's made me kind of realign, right, okay, well, let's think about arrangement more and just be a bit more confident with it. And I think that's kind of all I needed to be like, yeah, I can finish a track, which I haven't done in God knows how long. Yeah. So I think that's how my process has changed slightly. What about yours, Joe?
I've gone back to how I used to produce in quite a nice way. Like I've literally just producing in headphones, and it's really I've become a lot more patient. I think like normally when we get onto a good idea together, we work quite fast to try and get the idea down as quickly as possible while it's still fresh. Whereas the difference now is that we've got like all the time in the world, so we can really, like I said, we pass these tracks back and forth, but we can really take our time. So I actually got enjoying going in and just working really slowly for a change, and like really just chipping away at something really gently, and knowing that.
Isn't it interesting that you just said we have all the time in the world, when really the only thing that changed is kind of our priorities, because you're still working full time and you're still making music. So it's really interesting how that's changed for you. Yeah,
well, I mean, we're still, even before all this, we were, like Warren said, we were going to the studio usually twice a week if we could help it, sometimes even 3 times. But it comes and goes with what's going on with our release schedule as well. So right now we're fortunately in a position where we've got 2 EPs lined up, and that's probably all we're going to release now for the rest of the year. 2 more EPs. One's towards like middle of summer, one's like towards winter, and that the way we see it, when we get an EP signed, the way we see it is like we bought ourselves time.
Yeah,
So
I do too.
The EP schedule, okay, well, we've got 6 months taken care of for Kassian. Like, that's the momentum we've got. We know we've got these big releases coming out. We've got plenty of time to plan the PR and all that other stuff. And obviously our manager helps us and stuff like that. But what that means for us as artists is that we've bought ourselves time. So now it's like, okay, cool, we've got 6 months to just make anything we want because we've got all that time. Kassian's taken care of publicly, there's stuff coming out, so we can just take this as we have a bit of downtime and we can just work on ideas without any constraints. If we had nothing coming out, we'd be a bit like, fuck, we need to get something ready because we need to, it's all, you know, the whole industry works on momentum, you have to keep releasing, keep putting yourself out there all the time. So now that we've got the lockdown plus these 2 releases lined up, there's no rush, which is really nice. So we can just take our time and chip away at these ideas. And then obviously we've got more spare time because of the lockdown. I'm actually enjoying that. Like, I'm quite like manically productive all the time. Like, I can't rest unless I feel like I'm being productive. Whereas actually now,
I don't understand how you're so productive sometimes.
I don't. It's not intentional. One's exactly the same.
I'll lie down for a bit and go, I'm bored. I need to do something.
Yeah, I'll try and watch a film and within 5 minutes, I need to do something else.
Decided, we're quite similar in that way. It's like,
yeah,
work ethic, I think, is like we were both prepared to work as hard as each other. I think that was quite interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we always push each other a little bit, and it's never really off. Like, we'll just be messaging each other about whatever the next release or whatever it might be, like, constantly all the time.
At 2 a.m.
I mean, the other weekend I went on a 50-mile bike ride, and I kept stopping occasionally to check for some release or something.
Not check what Kassian's up to and then ride another 50 miles.
That's hilarious. That's exactly what I did yesterday. I went for a 4K run. After the first day, I was like, right, let me suggest to Joe the new A1 of the year. And then I was like, right, done that. Airplane mode, go next 3K.
You've just always got like your one side of your brain on that, which is nice, and that's why you seem to be, you know, super productive and bashing stuff out, which is great.
Yeah, it just gives you the purpose, right? It's like, I think it's always there, and it's like a big giant project you can just chip away at all the time. So I think I would feel less comfortable if I couldn't do it rather than feeling too busy. I hate feeling not busy enough. That's
the right amount of busy. Like, you need to chill out sometimes.
Oh yeah, not too much. My girlfriend corrects me for this. Like, I have to put days in my calendar to take days off. Otherwise, I don't take days off. So I have to put, like, once a week. I have to have an evening where I have to tell myself. Maybe not so much in the lockdown, but yeah. Now it's like,
But you work full time plus have this on the side as a kind of another full-time job. I'm doing it just full time, and I feel like I don't have enough hours in the day. So genuinely, you know, it makes sense that you are so insanely busy, because you'll probably fill your days when you're doing this completely full time as well.
yeah.
I've become Joe's mistress. That's it.
Yeah, when Joe was like, oh yeah, sorry. I was going to say about when you were like, maybe I'm going to go to Berlin, but hold on, I just need to make sure this is okay with my girlfriend and also okay with Warren.
Yeah, Abby just refers to Warren as my other girlfriend. I think she's watching right now.
Huh?
I think she's watching right now, so I'm sure she's watching.
So I was going to ask you, we've been chatting to a lot of people about obviously our industry and seeing it going through huge changes at the moment. What changes have you seen that you think are actually going to stay and benefit our community in the long run?
So I work at Dice FM, which if anyone doesn't know, is like a big ticketing company. We sell tickets to events. And obviously they've been hit really hard by the quarantine and lockdown. All the live events in the whole world have gone. So they very, very quickly moved into selling tickets to live streams, whether that's for charity donations for big artists, or just for free, or sometimes all paid for the smaller artists who are trying to make some extra revenue while they can't play shows. And they definitely want that to continue after the lockdown. So the way that they're kind of gearing up for this is you can definitely foresee a world where actually in the future, once the lockdown ends, gigs can be a hybrid of both a physical, real gig that people can go to and live streamed, and actually can sell tickets for both. So, if you live in a different part of the world or a different area, you can't physically make the gig. Most venues now, at least from Dice's point of view, are gearing up for live streaming within the venue. So they have like the right equipment, cameras, everything. So then in the future, it's like, well, if that venue is putting on a gig or a club night or whatever, why not also live stream it and sell the live stream ticket for a fraction of the physical ticket? And then if you can't make it, you can at least tune in and watch it, and you can watch it live.
And I think that's an incredible idea, and I believe that's the way we should go. Do you feel like, some of the smaller artists, that will be kind of feasible for them? Because, maybe I'm feeling like, I don't know if you feel the same, a lot of people are expecting free content. I don't know about you, I've been asked to do so many sets for free, And do you think because now that's maybe a standard, that we will be able to shift people's way of thinking into, actually, I will pay for that live stream?
Well, we've actually seen at Dice a lot of, there's Dice deals more at the top end of the industry, so we don't really focus on bedroom DJs like that. They shoot much for big bands, and the ones that you might pay 20, 30 quid to go and see. The ones, the sellout acts, basically the ones that will fill a room, and I think this is very different in the States. So in the States, they're a lot more accustomed to selling themselves. And local radio stations in the States will ask for money, like very, very comfortably. Whereas in the UK, that never really happens. And I think I used to work at Mixcloud, and they had a similar thing about creators trying to sell themselves. They find it quite hard to sell themselves. And I think that will shift during the lockdown. So as this goes on and the novelty wears off, I think some artists will realise that the bar is actually raised. So if you just turn on a live stream in your living room and mix for a bit, you probably can't charge for that. Whereas if you do something, I saw a brilliant stream that Defected did. They took over Ministry of Sound by the actual club, and they had some Shake and some other people. They had some decent names DJing in there. They had all the dancers and the lights, and they had full production. And I think you could charge for something like that because you're actually really putting the effort in and putting on a proper show. And I think what we'll start to see is some creators, some DJs and bands and stuff will realise that actually, if they really put the effort in and do something special for a live stream or for a remote event, then they probably can charge. But you can't just necessarily turn a camera on. I think that's the way it's going to shift.
Again, though, I don't know if you agree, but I feel like then the middle tier of DJs are really going to lose out in this situation again, because, they, like you said, most people are focusing on top tier artists who already earn quite a lot, who are probably okay in this current situation. So it's like people like us, for example, we're not getting tiny fees, but we're not getting extortionate fees. We're, the ones that aren't getting gigs at the moment. But do you think people are actually going to then pay for that live stream if it's one that you're like, I've put loads of energy into this and I'm still playing my music and I'm doing a really good job? Do you think it's feasible that the middle tier of DJs are going to make money?
I think hopefully, from what a few people are saying, there might be a kickback in terms of, well, when this is done, people will want to go out more and they won't all want to go to the same clubs. So there will be more option, and people aren't just going to go to the same 5 clubs in London. People are going to want to go, all right, let's go to that, or let's try something else. So I'm thinking that middle tier artists could benefit in that sense of just trying out new places. You want to try something new, whereas not going to the same accustomed top spots, which are always playing and booking the same DJs. I don't know. It's really hard to call. I like what's going to happen.
It's definitely very tough for the small and middle tier artists. I mean, smaller artists, I don't think it actually really changes things that much, because it's just as hard to fight. It's hard enough to get, if you're a small DJ in London, it's hard enough to get a gig. You know what I mean? And actually, it's slightly leveling in that sense, in that you can just record and just put it out there without having to feel like you're losing out by not playing in the club. Anyone can upload a mix, just put it somewhere, right, and try and promote it.
Totally.
It's the middle, like you said, that I think are really going to suffer.
Also, I think now that people are realizing that to make money off just streaming music alone you need to have millions of plays. to like have a consistent income just from streaming, which is now how people consume music. It's basically impossible. So I think maybe people are starting to realize that now they can't live off it, like for a long period of time, that there might need to be a kickback, but I don't really know how that's going to happen either. Or there might need to be some kind of that's, if it's just Spotify calling the shots, then there needs to be a change potentially. I don't know.
Totally. We've been chatting actually about that quite a lot with a few artists. You know, they've actually been saying, oh well, if I was a DJ, this would really suck because I make all my money from streaming. And it's really interesting because it really made me think about the kind of music that I'm producing, you know, because we're producing mainly dance floor music for the dance floor. So do you think it in a way then changes the idea for you? You know, maybe you'll make some more chilled home streaming type music as well, like more jazzy?
It's something we've always talked about, not in any relation to the lockdown. Just, you know, we've talked about this idea of making like an album or something more kind of home listening, which we definitely will do at some point, in case of when really. But in relation to the lockdown, no, it hasn't really changed us. I mean, we're still going ahead with the idea that this will end at some point. Whenever that might be, and we're just trying to prepare. Really, the way we're chatting about it with our manager, like more strategically, is thinking, how can we use this time most effectively, and how can we just come out of it swinging, basically, with like as much impact as we possibly can. So we'll have some great releases lined up, try and get some gigs locked in when it ends. You know, just really focus on the end. But I mean, I know that we're fortunate. I mean, previously we saw ourselves as unfortunate, but now it's fortunate that we both still have full-time jobs.
Yes.
We know some artists, you know, even that our manager works with, who recently left full-time work to do music full-time, like just lockdown, and you know,
which you were also thinking of doing at some point, weren't you?
One day, yeah. I mean, when, but you know, we're lucky in that neither of us are in a rush to leave our job. We're not gonna, you know, there's no pressure to do that. So there's no urgency in that sense. We just, if the time comes, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Whereas for some artists, you know, an artist who's just transitioning into that kind of, they're a medium-sized person, and maybe they're headlining some shows and they're touring a little bit. You know, for those people who've just taken the leap, it's obviously really, really tough because they've just stepped off the cliff, and then the whole thing is
super tough. I feel like I just jumped off a cliff, but
to be fair, you jumped off the cliff jump.
Don't worry about it though. I'm having loads of wine and my cat's really cute. So I've got a couple more questions from the live. Another question for you. Looking back at your early years of producing, would you have done anything differently or focused your time, energy in any particular way? Time or energy?
It's a very good question.
Nick's got some great blooming questions over here. Yeah.
I mean, everything's just learning, isn't it? Really, it's kind of trial and error at that point. My very earliest productions were awful, but I'd learned the quickest time at that point. Yeah. How would you answer that?
I mean, yeah, if you go on Beatport and scroll to the end, it's pretty awful. It's not that bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
No, I listen to it and I'm like, oh, yeah, I wouldn't release that now. But I think what I would have changed, I guess, I would have been a little bit more withheld, a bit more confident, and actually held stuff back. I think I released too much stuff. I would have done better. I think it comes across much better to release less material and really be 100% happy with that material than to try 20 or 30 tracks and just get. My mindset at the time was get as much stuff out there, saturate, you know, get as much as you can out, and lots of labels like waving around on, you know, whereas actually all that precursor stuff was fine and it helped a little bit, but really for me at least, it was the Interludes EP, the one that Warren remixed on. That was the one that got me any sort of recognition. And actually, I could have just done that without the previous EPs. Not that I don't like them, but I could have definitely.
I don't agree with you there.
You don't agree with me?
No. I mean, when I first found Danvers' music when I was on radio, because I was working at Wild FM, I could hear certain elements which made me realise that, hold on, there's certain other producers at a similar stage to me who I think I could work with well, who have a similar style and direction, and that's kind of what made me drawn to his sound. So without that, they wouldn't be Kassian. So you can't just chuck away the.
Don't throw that away, Joe. And also, like, you know, I think it's quite nice sometimes when people feel like they see an artist evolve in a way and their sound changes.
Maybe I went a bit out of turn. I think what I'm trying to say is
Literally just threw half Discog in the bin, mate.
No, that's not saying. What I'm trying to say is I think so put it like this, like for every Kassian track that's released, there's probably 10 average ideas that never saw the light of day, and it's more about having a really strong filter and confidence. Like, not every single track that we make gets released, not every single sketch we make gets finished and turned into a track.
I mean, that would be impossible. The amount of tracks you make, if they all got released, I don't think there'd be enough labels.
I know, to say that, the one that just released, the single Ask Yourself that just came out, actually was one of the first ones we made. We just tidied it right up and made it sound new again. So it's always worth keeping those things. But I think what I'm trying to say here is, like, I think when you're starting out, there's no rush. It's better to just focus on quality. And if you might have some tracks, like if you have your first 10 tracks and you think they're pretty good, and then you go to 5 labels and they all say, yeah, nearly there, but not quite, not that good enough, you should probably just move on and make some new stuff rather than try to force those tracks to come out. I think maybe it's slightly detrimental to do that. It's better to just release as high a quality as you can all the time rather than release lots and lots of.
That's something I've learned from working with Kassian, is I was forcing a lot of things that probably could have just like spent the energy working on something new. If I applied the same amount of hours and energy to like one project, which I'd spent like 6 months on, could have made like 10 tracks. So that's probably my one.
And often some of the best ideas happen really quickly, right? You might spend months or weeks on one track and just can't quite get it right, and then you ditch it, move to the next one, and you make a great idea.
Yeah.
Actually, unless I'd spent all that time on the old one, I wouldn't have made this one.
Totally. I've got some more questions from the chat as well. Who are the best live streamers in the game, in your opinion? Who you been watching?
I just got an email that said that Defected are killing it again with the best live streamers in the game.
Who have they got?
I don't know. It's from PR.
Oh,
but I don't know. The RA one was quite cool. The quarantine thing.
Yeah.
If that's what they mean, do they mean like live streaming? Yeah. That was an interesting concept because it was like the virtual club. It's just something different. I can't really think. I'm not really tuned into that many, to be honest.
Yeah, have you been watching many? Because I've not really been watching so many.
I haven't watched a single one.
Mate, you've got no time.
Admittedly, I don't really watch stuff like ever. So
you don't really watch stuff. What do you mean?
No, I watch series when I go to bed, but like I don't want to tune into a live stream.
Yeah, sometimes you want to give your ears a rest as well.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather spend the time producing, and that kind of takes up a bit more of the kind of like you said, like listening to music.
All right, we've got another one as well. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, actually, Detroit. I did watch a little bit of Detroit one the other day. That was cool.
What was that? You told me about that one.
They played. They played on like the top of some tower in Amsterdam, and they were both wearing like surgical gloves and the masks and everything. They're just in this back to back. It was really nice.
How they have ADE. Yeah.
It was cool. They could tell that they had a nice crew in the room, which was a really nice setting, and it was really organic feeling.
I think their lockdown restrictions are a bit more chilled over in the Netherlands. They seem to be having a lot more like spaces for people to do sets, and some clubs are open and having like little lineups, but just doing live streams and stuff. So I think they've got a lot more platforms. Thinking of other ways to make revenue from music, do you guys do any production or mixing for other artists, or commercial composition or production?
Something we've spoken many times.
We've spoken about it. I don't think we have as yet, but something that we consider.
We did one commercial project ages ago. Do you remember we did that short film thing?
For the Berlin
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
We dipped our toes in.
That wasn't really.
Yeah.
We were doing it for the advert, so it was quite.
Yeah, we got commissioned to do it.
That's nice.
It wasn't a Kassian thing. It was like us individually. It was doing it. So we went name. I've been doing teaching, which.
Yeah, you have. That's exciting.
Yeah, so I did. I've got two students now. I'm obviously doing remotely with Jay Carter. She's an awesome DJ. You know her, right, Christy? I'm sure you met her. Yeah.
I was actually speaking to her today.
Yeah, she's doing it, man. She's an amazing DJ, and she's picking it up super fast. Great. And another guy called Emmanuel. Warren, you remember him? He used to run the studio.
Yeah, from studio, right?
It's a 13-hour time difference. He's in New Zealand. Quite joking.
Oh wow, I didn't know
Oh
that.
my god, it's hard enough to even have like a 10-minute chat with someone in Australia or New Zealand, let alone do a tutorial.
We did our first one last night. It was 8 p.m. for me. It was 7 a.m. for him.
Wow.
I didn't even realize. I didn't realize it was that early, and I looked at the clock. The only reason I saw this because he shared his screen, and I saw the time. It's 7 a.m.
He's dedicated.
No, it was really good there, and actually, I'm really enjoying it. It's really nice. Zoom works really well with them. I really enjoy teaching, as you know, Christy. Like I find it a nice, reaffirming. Like it's good for me. It's good for my own music production to try and explain it to someone else because it kind of makes you realise what your bad habits and good habits are.
And you're really good at it.
Thank you. So that's I've been subsidising, like me and Warren have to pay our studio bills, and obviously no one's using the studio right now. So that sucks a little bit. So I've been doing a bit more teaching to
amazing.
put cash towards that. That's definitely been helpful.
Yeah, I'm bummed I can't use the studio right now, guys. But soon.
Soon.
We've never picked up any commercial stuff though. Not yet. Not willingly. We're not. So we'd absolutely never do it. But it's never really been.
If we were going to go full time, it would definitely be something to consider. As like, right, we have the base to work from. How can we utilize it and make multiple revenue streams?
Yeah, we've considered doing like sync work, like adding to sync libraries and stuff like that. You can make quite a bit of money off that, keep the time in. But again, just because we're both clocking like 35, 40 hours a week doing full-time jobs. So right now, any time we get to do music, we just want to.
Yeah, you focus on yourselves, you know, that's what you really need to do at the moment because of your time constraints. I'm really excited to ask you about this next bit. So we've been asking everyone about sorry, my chair keeps naturally just moving around, sorry. Their most favourite, most played track in isolation, and also their most inspirational track or an inspirational track that sort of shaped your sound. I'm going to share the audio, so you won't be able to hear me, but you can have a little chat about it. So the first one we're going to go for is, I think your most...
Which one's it?
I think it's the Fritz one. Yeah. I think you'll hear it. Let's go for it.
So Warren, I don't know if you know.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
I don't remember what this one is.
It's the one. It's the first EP from Bobby Donny. First job we did.
Yeah, I love the track. Yeah. Play this on my radio show quite often. Yeah, it's a banger.
I think when we first started out, we had a couple of artists that we really were into, and Fritz was definitely Fritz, Leon Vinyl, two that we both really liked. And Fritz is just like the groove that he has, and like the weird the weird sonic kind of space he occupies is so ridiculous. It sounds like nothing else. And I think we definitely took a bit from that. We both really liked Fritz.
Yeah, totally. He's amazing and real groovy and nice and swung. I feel like you're definitely like the kings of that as well.
Yeah, it's like interesting groove, and then like really when you listen to his music and it immediately like puts you in this specific place where you can hear something you've never heard by him.
Yeah, totally.
Just the tones he uses and everything. And same with Leon Vinyl, to be honest. Like the aesthetic of his sound, like whatever what he makes, you can hear a track and you just know it's him because of the treatment and everything. And like I think we definitely took a little bit.
Amazing. And I've got a few tracks to play now. It's going to be sort of tracks that you've played quite a lot in isolation. So here's the first one. I know this.
The ironic thing is, we've probably listened to that
hundreds and
a
hundreds.
million times each.
And you're still listening to it loads.
I
Yeah.
still listen to it like almost every day. I've got to listen to it once a day. It's so good.
What is it about it?
Her voice, like the groove, in it,
Yeah.
chords in it, like the bass, everything. It's so good. The progression and the arrangement, the way
Wild. It's so wild but like chilled at the same time. That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And you were saying something about maybe doing a little edit, or is that?
Yeah, it might be a
Might be a thing that we've been working on forever.
Forever. Is that why you've heard it 100 times?
Yeah. It might be we're doing another version for it.
That could be one of them. It's in the
Nice.
vein.
All right, so I'm going to play another one. And tell us a little bit about this one.
All I ever wanted is something brand new. Or am I a dreamer?
Nice, right?
That is so nice. I was actually like, when should I stop playing this? I feel like I just want to keep going.
I've been, ever since the first Bandcamp Day thing, where they've just been waiving the fees and downloading loads of music just because why not?
Yeah.
And I just downloaded so much music, and I was going through and found that one just before I started to run. So I've been listening to it most dailies on runs and stuff. It's like that perfect kind of like evening. It's John Beltram, Yorba Soul. So I think it's Osunlade.
It is also Nade mix.
Yeah, it's lovely. Lovely little jazz crossover house thing.
I feel that's totally up your street. Like if I
Yeah,
think Warren in a track.
That is me. I played it like randomly. I think my iTunes was on shuffle, just all the new stuff, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is great!"
Stop.
So what,
Sing it since.
the Youssef Days Tom Reach album is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's great. Youssef is just mind-blowingly talented, right?
I
So
sent it to my
insane.
dad.
Huh?
I sent it to my dad. So it was like he likes jazz, and I was like, it's such a perfect like crossover of that South London jazz sound into kind of a bit more accessible, a bit more poppy, but just absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, perfect. And I've got one more, because when I was like, okay, guys, can you give me an inspirational track or a track most played nicer? You were like, that's insanely difficult. We've got.
I was like, I don't know if I can do that, Christy. I don't know if I can do that. Yeah.
A little bit of an issue, Christy. It's a little bit of an issue. Let me just get this last one.
Pull you up.
What's this going to be? Is this one of yours, Warren?
Yeah. So good.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is great as well. These are so good. I'm
So
just
good.
gonna like keep.
I raided someone's Bandcamp and probably spent about 60 quid on their whole discography, and that was one of them. We put it in our second house from home mix.
Yeah.
And someone commented going, it's got more swing than the landslide Tory election. Yeah, that's a lovely about there.
That is fab. Who was that? I just can't.
I think
G-Man on my mind.
South Central remix, yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing. Guys, oh my god, we've been chatting for an hour and 10 minutes.
Have we?
It's been good.
It's been so nice to chat. What have you got anything else that are gonna come up for Kassian over the next couple of months that we should look out for?
We've got Heist EP coming up.
When is that?
July, early July, I think. With a remix from,
yeah.
Sorry.
Just got the remix in.
Yeah, got a really good remix from Leopold, which is his first time on Heist as well, which is awesome. He really smashed it. It sounds great. Also on the A1 there we've got there's a great producer called Leroy, French guy from Brighton, who's makes kind of broken beat normally, released on Tips Joints.
Yeah, you told me about him a while ago.
That's how we found out about him, because of Tips Joints, and he is, if anyone doesn't know him, check out his Instagram. It's incredible. It's just him jamming on like got modular synths,
bongos and all that.
Leroy.
Yeah. He's one of those guys who just can play everything. Yeah, he's on the A1. He played some modular synths and some live percussion. It's definitely like the A1 at least is like as close as we can get to doing a real disco track. It's all live instrumentation.
Amazing. All right. Well, I look forward to hearing that, because I love Heist as well.
Yeah.
As soon as we get the masters.
Send them over. Honestly, guys, thank you so much for chatting. It's been really nice to catch up with you and see your little faces and your matching shaved heads.
Yeah.
Not intentionally.
Didn't do that on purpose, but yeah, this is the new look Kassian.
Yeah, it's because we're making techno now.
Yeah.
You're making techno. You need to get bored and put your black t-shirts on.
Mine's going a lot quicker than yours, I feel like.
I shaved mine again yesterday.
Oh, right. Well, there you go.
Right, guys. Hope you get the rest of the sunshine, the half an hour that's left, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you for everything. See ya.
See you later.